Between 1920 and 1960, the average suburban American lot went from this to this, from long and narrow to basically square, producing an untested settlement pattern that we've been trying to undo ever since. And the airy layout of the new shape wasn't just motivated by the desire for more space, though. It started in the 1940s due to how the suburbs were physically built, which actually demanded these proportions. And all of this was driven largely by invisible systems underground.
Every day, as foundations and floors are laid down for more houses, the burden on public services becomes greater.
Prior to this shift, urban development and rural development followed distinctly different patterns, each stemming from their own approaches to supplying homes with water and eliminating waste. This can be tracked by observing the shapes of their lots. Rural homesteads and their large tracts of land mostly fit within the large grid organizing the US. And these can take almost any shape because the home's needs are provided at a local level, like a little island around the house. For water, that means digging a well to tap into an underground aquifer. And sewage, it was pretty easy too. Either just let it run into a nearby stream of water, disgusting, or collect it into a cesspit, also disgusting. It's a giant underground storage tank. In urban areas, both drinking water and sewage are pumped in and out centrally. So individual lots are best arranged with their short sides facing the street. This minimizes the length of the individual sewer runs, as well as the space between the different connections. But starting in the 1940s, developers began experimenting with ways of creating more dense developments, but using the same systems from rural homesteads. That way, the developers, they could save on upfront investment costs. They could also build more quickly because they didn't need to coordinate with municipal agencies or wait around while infrastructure was being laid. This approach established an incentive to push the limits of what rural systems could handle. How close could these water and sewage strategies get before they start creating problems? Well, no one really knew because they hadn't been studied yet. So there were no guidelines in place to establish best practices, and there were no regulating bodies to enforce the rules even if the guidelines were written down somewhere. So developers that wanted to build homes for returning veterans were on their own to plan how they thought suburban neighborhoods might work. The most prolific was William Levitt, who acquired 4,700 acres just outside of Manhattan. And he's famous for systematizing home construction until his company, Levitt & Sons, could complete a new one every few minutes. But the layout and the shapes for those lots in this development wasn't just about constructing homes like an assembly line. The layout logic was set by using those rural water systems at a density that had never been done before.
We had to start from scratch with absolutely nothing, and everything had to be done at once.
Operating on intuition and his full control of the development process from top to bottom, from design to sale, Levitt approached the 4,700 acres with fresh eyes. He wanted to save costs by building thousands of nearly identical houses, so putting them in a grid would look just utterly dystopian. Instead, he thought, if each house is like an island, streets could take curves and bends without adding any costs by complicating the underground systems. This makes traveling through the neighborhood above ground closer to what you might experience walking in a park. You might think of the winding paths in places like Central Park. The turns make the overall dimensions feel smaller and more manageable by blocking the views ahead.
We made up our minds not to duplicate one basic error that we find in all the other cities, namely that the individual occupant is lost in its bigness.
If we're looking down from above, we can see the relentlessly copied houses everywhere. But on the ground, you might only get a glimpse of a handful at a time. Along the curvy routes, Levitt decided to place a house every 60 feet, or 20 meters. But because houses were being turned out like an assembly line, some of them were finishing, while others down the street were just starting construction.
Before a housing tract is completed, families move into their new homes.
As families began moving into the first section, the cesspools behind everyone's home began filling up too quickly and leaking. So Levitt made a decision to switch from cesspools to septic systems. This too is a technology only used in rural settings. But instead of just holding everything forever, the tank is more like a pit stop on a longer journey. Inside the septic tank, the bacteria breaks everything down over time. Solids sink to the bottom, liquids stick around, and some really gross stuff ends up floating up on the top. This process significantly cuts down on the volume of solids, which do need to be emptied occasionally. But it's significantly less than you might think, because the bacteria, they do a pretty good job of separating out the moisture. To keep the process moving though, the liquids have to go somewhere. So when new liquid comes in, it pushes the same amount out after it's spent some time inside this box. In order to spread this out for maximum absorption, a pipe connects to the tank to a splitter that diverts contents along one of a few branches that are spaced evenly in parallel lines. This area is known as the drain field, and its size is governed by a few factors. The more people living in the house, the bigger it needs to be. And different types of soil make better filters than others, so that impacts the required size too. Levitt sized the tanks based on the average size of their most popular style of house, the Cape Cod. It had 3 bedrooms, so it got a 500-gallon septic tank behind it. The more square-shaped lots of the overall layout allowed Levitt to space the drain fields as far apart as possible. This way, each one has as much soil as possible before its leached liquids might come into contact with its neighbor. The liquid that comes out, it's not quite sanitary yet, but the bacteria get it partially there. It turns out though, if that liquid spends a little more time just passing through the soil, the earth will act like a massive biological filter. Microorganisms that live in the soil will break down harmful pathogens, bacteria, and viruses, while the soil particles trap nutrients like phosphorus and nitrogen. Luckily, the soil here in Long Island, it could handle it. It's made from a lot of gravel, which doesn't compact very tightly. The spaces between each of the rocks or stones can accommodate massive amounts of liquid before it becomes saturated. It was Levitt's faith in this porous soil that allowed him to feel comfortable enough to build such a dense configuration of septic systems. This configuration became the model for suburban lots across the United States. Not necessarily because of Levitt, but based on the technology that's being used here. A house with an area of land around it that's sized to accommodate its septic system. The system itself isn't totally invisible though. The tank has a little hatch so that it can be emptied occasionally. And the drain field, it needs to remain open above to be able to do its job. Even plants on the surface with sufficiently deep roots can disrupt the functioning of it. So homeowners, they began planting shallow-rooted perennials and grasses to camouflage everything. The vast green lawn that we associate with the American suburbs solves a critical functional necessity here. It's the ideal cover over a drain field because its shallow roots don't interfere with anything. While at the same time, the grass allows water and other liquids to continue flowing through the soil. Over time, this whole layout became codified with more and more laws and standards. The most impactful actually came from the Federal Housing Authority, or the FHA. They were the ones that backed the mortgage loans. And if a development layout seemed like a risky investment, they just wouldn't approve the buyer's mortgage. So given this powerful position, their minimum property standards became the de facto spatial logic of the lot. This includes their 50-100-10 rule that governs septic systems and their spacing. That's the most significant rule shaping the lot of the home of Suburbs. It calls for 50 feet between a water well and a septic tank, 100 feet of a well to a drain field, and 10 feet from a well to a property line. Solving geometrically for this 50-100-10 rule creates a square shape that takes up about a half an acre, or about 22,000 square feet. The FHA's rules were applied universally across the United States, regardless of the local conditions. Over in Levittown, though, those lots were maybe a third of the size that was required by the FHA, around 6,000 square feet each. Even so, their systems, they seemed to work just fine, for a while. The porous soil of the area masked any signs of any looming problems. But soon after, problems began sprouting up everywhere, fast. The pipes that Levitt used in the drain fields weren't metal or plastic like today's. Metal was just too expensive, and it was scarce after the war, so he used pipes that were made of cellulose fiber. While the material itself is rated to survive a pretty long time underground, turns out that the material's structural integrity doesn't quite last as long. The pipes collapsed under the weight of the soil and did almost nothing to stop tree roots from bursting right through them. Homeowners began noticing areas of their yard that stayed soggy for 24/7, or some had smelly puddles that just wouldn't go away. That's because their drain pipes failed. Instead of the liquid seeping out of the tank at a constant rate and spreading out, it flowed out in concentrated zones where the breach occurred. For many homeowners, replacing the pipes, it didn't even fix the problem. In particular, those were the families who purchased the Cape Cod model home. One of its biggest selling points was the expansion attic that could be converted with ease into an additional bedroom or two. What most homeowners didn't think about was that their septic tank was sized for a 3-bedroom though, not 5.
2 bedrooms, a large living room, part of which can be converted into a 3rd bedroom.
And they didn't know that they needed to upgrade their septic tank, but learned that lesson when their systems collapsed from overuse. While these individual failures plagued the entire development, a full-scale ecological disaster was just lurking underneath. That amazing soil, which worked so well by letting the liquids flow through it freely, that held an unpleasant surprise. Its porosity also meant that the leached liquids could move quickly through it and traveled way longer distances than expected. So before the soil had a chance to do its job, unfiltered liquids began leaching into the upper glacial and the megathy layers of the underground aquifer. the body of water that provides the drinking water for all of Long Island without any real alternative. These kinds of septic tank failures have continued across the United States for decades, with unique consequences that depend on the local geography or geology. There's an area in California known as Portuguese Bend, and it sits on a mountain with bedrock below the soil layer.
The shifting continues to be a major problem for people. Last month, more than 100 homes had their gas shut off.
When the soil became saturated from all the seeping septic systems, the moisture lubricated the bedrock below. And once the friction holding that soil layer in place faded away, the neighborhood began sliding down the mountain and into the ocean. That process is still continuing today. So while Levittown isn't sliding into the ocean surfing on Levitt's short-sightedness, his planning mistakes have cost hundreds of millions of dollars to fix here. These fixes came along with years of added inconvenience, as an entire underground sewer system had to be stitched between all the existing home sites. Originally, the lots were specifically sized and laid out in disregard for the requirements of sewers, so the only solution was cutting these systems right through everyone's backyards. The underground network also comes with easements to ensure access for maintenance workers, so homeowners are severely restricted now. And this is pretty much how this played out everywhere. Neighborhoods being planned around septic systems, creating a square lot, but of a size that we didn't quite know would work. Today, about 25% of all households still use a septic tank. And to be clear, these things can work fine when planned and maintained appropriately. But even today, 20% of septic systems will fail at some point in their life cycle. While our systems may continue working for a while, at some point, one person's footprint begins to overlap with everyone else's. This squarish lot developed to solve a pretty direct functional problem, but as times change, it has created many more problems than we bargained for, which we would have been able to predict if we could just see through the ground like an X-ray to understand how all the pieces fit together under there. Well, that's the premise of the show called The Anatomy Of, produced by our friends at Real Engineering. I absolutely adore it. They take you on these deep dives into things with these X-ray views, things like the Nokia 3310. Like, did you know that it's built like a building with an internal frame that's protected by a hard removable shell? That's why it's so indestructible. The Anatomy Of is an original show that you'll only find on Nebula, the streaming platform that's built and owned by creators. It's like a prestigious clubhouse where your favorite 200 or so creators hang out. We post exclusive content like my recent interview with the governor of Illinois, or original series like The Anatomy Of, or like Wendover's really fascinating Logistics Of. And we make our regular content available before anywhere else. So follow the link on the screen or in the description to be able to watch The Anatomy Of. There you can also join Nebula. It's only $2.50 per month when you sign up for a year if you're using my link, which is 50% off of the regular price. And if you really love what you see, you can just pay once and get access to everything for the rest of your life. If you're already signed up, you can gift a subscription to a loved one. Either way, you'll be supporting me directly while unlocking the best thoughtful content out there right now. See you over there.